Mr. Jaitley, thank you very much and congratulations on your maiden budget. And so, Mr. Jaitley, you had a huge mandate. So with a big mandate, the expectation was of a big bang budget. You have presented what you yourself are describing as a directional budget. Have you held yourself back? Have you been a little cautious to start with? And
well,
if so, what?
There is no step which we had to take which we have not taken. But these are not the only steps. I called it directional from that point of view. In a 45-day exercise, what do? You analyze the situation, you look at all the issues pending on the drawing board unresolved, and you decide and proclaim your policy on those issues. You are able to go all the way in some issues, you are able to go part of the way because you think that's the appropriate stand to take. Then you look at sectors you have to encourage. And then what impact it will have on the common man.
Yeah.
Now, are we to revive the growth process in this country? Are we to get investors back? Are we to persuade domestic investors from flying out of the country? Are we to give a fillip to our manufacturing sector? Now, these are all challenges before us. Are we to address the supply side, which then takes care of the inflation-related issues? How do you look at certain specific sectors of the economy which can actually be the engine drivers of growth? You have a huge problem in hand that there are unexplored areas of investment, and there are some decisions by Government of India and our own systems which in fact make the investors disinclined to come to India. Now, all these issues on the drawing board, and part of these were problems created by the UPA government, and therefore I had certainly to address each one of those issues, and which required immediate attention. We've certainly addressed them.
Right.
Mr. Jaitley, on retrospective taxes, you've announced that in future there will be no retrospective taxes. You've announced a vision for the next 3 years about stability of taxes, but you've not resolved the existing problems which are daunting investor sentiment. Is the overhang of the fact that you have personally appeared for Vodafone and you've recused yourself from that decision something that was an overhang?
That had nothing to do with this issue. This issue was handled at a very senior level in this government. You see, there were 3 parts of the problem. We've addressed all 3. One, should there be retrospective tax creating fresh liability? Does Parliament have the power to enact retrospectively? I can't curtail Indian Parliament's jurisdiction. So Indian Parliament certainly has a sovereign right to enact retrospectively. They've done it in the past. It's legal, it's constitutional. Should they do it? There are extreme cases. For instance, you've collected a tax for the last 30 years. Some court strikes down that provision. Do you refund 30 years of tax and make the treasury absolutely blank? Or do you enact to protect what is already collected? It's possible. But do you enact today to create a new liability in a back date? We've said ordinarily no, which actually means this government is not in favor of it. So we've addressed the problem for the future. What happens to the 2012 legislation? Are more notices going to be issued? We've addressed by having the CBDT mechanism in that, to say assessing officers will not issue notice. Go to the CBDT if you come across any case, and we'll then examine it whether it has to be done or not. Because I've said in my statement today, it impacts on the investment environment. How do you address the past notice? That's the issue which you say hasn't been addressed. As far as the past notice is concerned, it's in litigation. And therefore, I have categorically said, I hope the litigation is resolved and we get a verdict very soon.
Right. Mr. Jaitley,
so I am clear about all the 3 contingencies.
Yeah. Mr. Jaitley, a lot of people were surprised when you picked up this 4.1% target. You said yourself that Chidambaram's target is daunting, but you took up the challenge. When I look at the details, a lot of economists actually suggested that you should come up with a more realistic figure. Some of our panelists said you should come out with a more, let there be truth-telling, even if it hits our credit ratings for a mobile, etc. In fact, they said it won't. My question to you is more on your receipt side, sir, if I can just go into detail on that. Are you being slightly over-optimistic on your receipts? See, 31% jump in service tax, okay, non-tax revenue 24%. But you have this, and you didn't mention the word disinvestment, you have like 145% jump from the revised budget estimates in miscellaneous non-tax receipts, which is disinvestment. So are you being slightly optimistic on your receipt side, especially on disinvestment?
You see, I am hopeful. I won't use the word optimistic, but I am realistic. The roadmap set by Mr. Chidambaram for this year was 4.1%. That roadmap has been set also to emphasize, re-emphasize and overemphasize the importance of fiscal prudence.
Yes.
Otherwise, everybody in the system, other ministries, states, segments of public opinion will come up and say, give me this concession, give me this concession. And you have to tell them that I can't spend beyond my means. And therefore, in my speech, I have said that effectively, if I spend beyond what I earn, then I am leaving a legacy of debt for the next generation. I am spending more so that my children or the next generation has to pay more taxes to cover up for this debt. That's not economic management. Therefore, I think 4.1 is the correct target which Mr. Chidambaram had fixed. How do we achieve it? We achieve it in two manners. Do we spend less? Some areas, monies don't get spent. But consciously you don't contract the economy because my whole effort is to expand economic activity. Do you then raise more revenue? So it's based on that hope or faith that if you resolve some of the issues of credibility of Indian economy, people are bound to look at you once again. People are bound to invest in India once again. And therefore, economic activity as it picks up, the revenues are going to pick up. Today, if one of your sectors, let's say highways, not at a standstill but very slow, banks not lending, real estate properties not selling, apartments not selling. Now, if all these activities are at a standstill, manufacturing sector flat growth. Now, if you want to reverse this trend, for instance, in February you gave a rebate to the auto sector for 3 months. I've continued it for 6 more months. It's a substantial rebate. It's cost a lot of tax sacrifice. And to consumable durables. April and May we didn't see much difference, but June suddenly we've seen the auto sales jumping up. Now if this trend picks up in different segments also, then of course you are going to have more revenue. You'll have more revenue in terms of manufacturing sector, in terms of service sector, in terms of direct taxes. And therefore there is a hope that we'll collect more. On disinvestment, let me make it clear.
Why did you not mention the word disinvestment?
I'll tell you. Because I am not following any new ingenious process myself. The UPA government had a particular ongoing process. For those PSUs where governments are holding 70, 80 and 90%, they want to chip off about 4 or 5% of their shareholding or 7% of their shareholding of 6, 7 PSUs by selling it in the market. Particularly when the market is at 25,000, 26,000. I don't mind that policy for the present, because if the market is so high and share gets sold to the small investors in the big market, so be it.
Mr. Jaitley, you didn't mention disinvestment because you're a politician, Mr. Jaitley. You did not want a political hot potato.
With the left parties really coming out and opposing you.
Mr. Jaitley, you have this remarkable ability sometimes to do something and not state why you're doing it. You didn't want the left after you.
Reforms are an art of the possible. And therefore you don't reform by entering into confrontations on day one.
Yeah.
You must do what is doable.
Yeah.
You must tactically do what is possible.
Yeah.
And what is going to lead to a roadblock You can avoid doing that for the present.
Right.
There is enough on the plate of this government. The UPA, believe me, has let a lot of unresolved areas on the drawing board.
No.
Therefore, I have a lot to act on.
It's a smart
Mr.
strategy.
Jaitley,
A smart strategy where you bank on disinvestment, but you don't want to make it a
But
political
you see,
issue for the moment.
take areas like, I'll give you two areas. Bank capitalization. Today, our banks are reaching 58% of the population. Banks need more money so that they are able to reach 80, 90 and 100% of the population. How do you get money into the banks? Now, I have said I will maintain 51% for all PSU banks. I won't go down. I won't privatize them. They'll remain public character. I'll give them autonomy. But some surplus shares, today people of India have an indirect holding in the banks through the government of India. Let small investors own it. Each bank will come out with a 4%, 5% once in a while, and therefore you will divest. And countries have seen this kind of a divestment where economic activity has picked up. There is a mass holding in a body of shareholders which control these enterprises. And therefore, I use that accrual of the banks in order to expand the banking sector of India.
Point taken.
Well, Mr. Jaitley, on the issue of fiscal deficit, you've gone with Chidambaram's formula. On the issue of disinvestment, you've again gone with the Chidambaram formula. On the issue of Manrega, which is a Sonia Gandhi scheme, you've stuck to it. You've given 1,15,000 crore in subsidies to this scheme alone.
No, it's 33,000 odd, 35,000
It's
odd.
1,15,000 in the expenditure budget, which includes 59,000 crore for the Food Security Act.
Yeah, that's separate. That's separate. Now, as far as Manrega is concerned, if you see my speech, we are in favor of giving these opportunities to those who can't otherwise support themselves. But the Department of Rural Development will come out with a proper structured program. I have said that I will link it to asset creation. I will link it to agriculture. And therefore, to try aimlessly for money to be distributed just as doles and be a burden on the public exchequer without creating any assets may not be in the best interest of the economy.
Direct tax cash transfers, that's not something that you're
DBT is a possible option. I have not gone into that. We've appointed an Expenditure Management Commission which will recommend. The Prime Minister already last week took a detailed meeting. The good thing about this Prime Minister is that he is not ideologically dogmatic in these areas. So after he took a presentation, with some amendments to the Aadhaar, can we use it with some amendments? And of course my party ideologically has a problem in the card being given to non-citizens. And that's a problem we've been candid about. So with some amendments, if it's a citizen-linked program, can you link some of the schemes to Aadhaar and the direct
benefit transfer?
The direct benefit transfer. Some people anticipate it will bring down 20-30% of the cost. And therefore, I am not saying this will be done, but this is an issue wide open. We are not dogmatic about it. We are willing to look at it. But then when you say I agree with them on some issues, I have accepted the fiscal deficit figure with a caveat. But then there is a lot of things they didn't do which I am going to do. At least I promised to do.